I'm David Warren, co-founder of Bridgeford Trust Company. In 1983, South Dakota became the first state in the country to completely abolish the Rule Against Perpetuities. Why is that important? The Rule Against Perpetuities was an arcane, old English rule that indicated that a trust had to end at some point in time in the United States. So if a family would create a trust, and after a certain period of time, measured by different aspects prescribed by the law, the trust had to dissolve. Why is that important? It's important because when that trust dissolved at any time based on how it was prescribed under each state's law, at that point, federal taxation was due to the federal government. In 1983, when South Dakota became the first state to abolish the Rule Against Perpetuities, it cleared the way for the creation of something called the Dynasty Trust. The Dynasty Trust lives forever in South Dakota, is never forced to dissolve, and therefore families can avoid paying federal taxation on assets within a trust forever. Now, that was the first modern trust law in the United States that radically changed the trust landscape. Now, subsequently, other states modified or abolished the Rule Against Perpetuities in an attempt, quite frankly, to keep up with South Dakota, because after 1983, some of the wealthiest families in the country migrated their trusts to South Dakota to take advantage of this very powerful tax planning tool. But it's very important to note that these Dynasty Trust states are not at all created equally. And just because a state like Delaware or Nevada or Alaska or New Hampshire has somehow abolished or otherwise amended the Rule Against Perpetuities, it doesn't mean it's the most progressive trust jurisdiction. There are a myriad of other factors that are looked at with respect to these Dynasty Trust states. For example, whether the state has a directed trust statute, whether the state has a decanting statute, whether the state has a directed trust statute. And just because they have some of these modern trust laws that I've mentioned, how do they compare it to one another within the context of the directed trust, or rather the Dynasty Trust capability? These are important questions when we're trying to decide which jurisdiction is best to place a trust in today in modern times. Nevada attorney Steve Oceans took a very hard look at these Dynasty Trust states and compared not only the Rule Against Perpetuity and whether or not it was fully abolished or amended, but compared other modern trust laws that were existing in each of these states and developed a very clear and powerful chart that objectively measures each of these areas with respect to a Dynasty Trust state. South Dakota has consistently been ranked as the #1 U.S. Dynasty Trust state in the nation. Now, interestingly, while Steve Oceans and others have compared various aspects to determine and to conclude that South Dakota is the top tier trust jurisdiction, what isn't considered in this Dynasty Trust comparison is the existence of privacy laws. So when you add in South Dakota's privacy provisions, which are universally considered by all commentators as being the most powerful and most robust trust laws in the nation, and in some cases around the world, it further demonstrates South Dakota's superiority in the comparison among other top trust jurisdictions. Interestingly, a few years ago at Heckerling, the United States premier trust and estates conference, an issue surfaced relative to the Dynasty Trust legislation in various states. And a question developed relative to whether, in fact, the removal of the Rule Against Perpetuities or some modification of it, was that even constitutional within the framework of each state's constitution? And it was an interesting conversation because it was determined that in Nevada and a few other of the top tier trust jurisdiction states, in fact, it was and should be considered unconstitutional for these states to have abolished the Rule Against Perpetuities or otherwise modified it. However, in South Dakota, it was fully permissible under that state's constitution. So why is this interesting? It's interesting because we have states that have modified or abolished the Rule Against Perpetuities, but it seems to be in direct conflict with that state's constitution, which raises the question, where are these Dynasty Trusts in Nevada and other states that I've mentioned, are they even constitutional under that state's government, under that state's constitution? That's vitally important when we're doing the analysis as to which is the top U.S. trust jurisdiction and when we're making our planning decisions, because South Dakota is unequivocally considered to have been able to do this under its state constitution. And when you combine that certainty with the myriad of progressive trust laws that are considered to be the best in the nation, South Dakota clearly ascends to the top of the list relative to what is the best trust jurisdiction in the United States. For more information about Dynasty Trusts and how they work in conjunction with other modern trust laws, please feel free to go to our website or contact us directly. We'd be happy to work with you and talk you through the concepts and how they can be incorporated into your trust planning.